I feel like lately I have been doing a lot of talking about this topic, but not actually talking about this topic. So today I'm talking to you about using your good yarn. But this conversation isn't just between you and I. We're also including Mary, aka Mercy Triumphs from Slow Crochet. If you don't know about Mary, I will tell you a little bit about her in just a minute. Let's start out by addressing what is good yarn, because we all have a different definition of that. So let's get to it. The easiest way I think any of us immediately go to when deciding what our good yarn is by the price we paid. If we paid a boatload for that yarn, obviously it's good yarn. But I know that Mary has been able to score some really amazing upscale yarns for very, very inexpensively at an amazing thrift store in Nashville. So that high price doesn't always go hand in hand. For starters, we'll definitely go with price. The next way to define what your good yarn is going to be availability / scarcity. For me, that's how I mostly define what my good yarn is. If I know I can walk into a big box store, pick it up just at the drop of a hat, or order it online at the drop of a hat, that accessibility kind of lowers, I don't mean it lowers the value, but in comparison to yarns that I know I'm not going to be able to get my hands on again, to me, those rare yarns, the scarcity of them, the unavailability really bumps them up in my book as far as what my good yarn is. So let me give you an example of that. Discontinued yarns. Yarns that you may have ordered that were like a mistint or like a one-off. I know sometimes indie dyers will do projects where, they only have a very limited availability. Or it could be as simple as something like this. I have 2 of these Super Saver ombres in the color cocoa. And Super Saver, obviously you can get it anywhere. Obviously it is an inexpensive yarn. And it's also acrylic. Now, they did discontinue quite a few of the ombre colors, and I believe cocoa was one of them. I had seen these in my store, my Joann. I really wanted them, but they weren't on sale, and I didn't get them. Then later, ordered them online, and they came, and they were a completely different dye lot. They were much more tan. And I'm going to go ahead and I will link in the description box. It's just a short I had done where I showed this cocoa and the cocoa that came from the website. You can see the difference in them, and they were different dye lots. But I have 2 of these, and what I loved about them is just that they were like this muddier type of color. Like it was more of, here in this lighting, it's kind of showing up a little more of like a muddy purple or mauve. It also has a little bit of like a reddish tint to it, in like when I have this yarn downstairs in my house. This is not available anymore. Also, the dye lot wasn't even available anymore. So to me, I am holding on to these 2 skeins, waiting till I do a project that I know I am going to love with them. And I do actually have one in mind, because I have been pushing myself to go through some of my good yarns and actually use them and not save them. And we'll talk about why in just a second. After a video, and I don't remember if it was either mine or Mary's because it's been a couple months, we got to chatting and decided we needed to do a collab video on something we both cared about. And if you're watching Mary's videos, it seems like her and I are on the same wavelength a lot of the time. I've really come to enjoy her videos and her like unique voice of storytelling and point of view. So I'm going to have her channel linked below. Also, she did have a shawl video go totally viral. So I will link her viral shawl video as well. The third thing that might put your yarn in the good yarn category is of course going to be fiber. That really alludes to a lot of times the price again, but if you've got merino or cashmere or cashmerino, obviously that is a lot nicer than acrylic. But I don't think we should necessarily judge it just based on that, for those reasons I mentioned earlier. Not to mention, we are all starting out in different places and we're all in different places, and our budgets are all different at different times. Even different times in our lives, our budgets are different. There are so many reasons why we may need to hold back on some yarn, or reasons why we can splurge a little bit. I really don't want this to be anything where we feel like we're excluding anybody from using yarns, or that we are not valuing their choice of good yarns, because like I said, if you walk through my stash, you would find things that probably I don't value as much that other people might, and things that I value a lot that other people might not. Definitely clear the air on that one. We're all going to have different ideas about what's good yarn. And to be honest, some of it boils down strictly to personal preferences. What do we like working with? What feels good in our hands? What feels good to wear? And what colors do we like and feel comfortable in? So many factors go into dealing with what your good yarn is. In the intro, I said I've been talking and talking and talking about using the good yarn lately. And I've had a couple videos lately where I do address this just a little bit. Really, I think it all boils down to the fact that you deserve to use it and you deserve to wear it. So, if you've already bought these yarns, clearly they spoke to you, and there's no reason that you shouldn't be using them. It's easy to hold off using them, like I said I was doing with the Silly Super Saver. I don't think we should procrastinate using those good yarns. In a video the other day I did about really like coming into your main character energy and feeling empowered to take care of yourself and to love yourself. And one of those ways was using your good yarns. And, someone kind of jokingly said, what if I died and never got to use the good yarn? But that is honestly, without going, to a darker, morbid place at all, that's something to really consider. What if you saved all of your good yarns and, God forbid something happens and they never get used, and then your family donates them or something like that? Wouldn't that have been a waste to hold those yarns off and never get the privilege and the fun and the enjoyment of working with them? That would actually, like, when you lay it out like that, that's kind of sad. And I don't want to dwell too much. I do not want this to be a doomsday type of video, so please don't take it that way at all. There are definitely happier reasons for you to use that good yarn. And really, a lot of it is just knowing what you like and not depriving yourself of something that you like. And I know that sounds super silly, but it's true. And I think that a lot of us, or most of us, do this to some extent. It could be from a ton of different reasons why we have this trauma, or why we don't allow ourselves to have all the good things. And that's kind of a subject I'm not equipped to talk about. I am going to link a couple videos down low that I watched in preparation for this. And the two that I'm going to link are real short, cut right to the point about reasons why you should use your good things. These aren't yarn videos, they're just lifestyle videos. But the reality is, you deserve to use and to wear the things that you really enjoy. So you should not have them in the closet or in your yarn stash buried, because if they bring you that much joy when you purchased it and that much joy to see it in your stash, but if it brings you that much joy, think how much joy that it would bring you to be able to put that garment on and wear it proudly, knowing that you took the time to craft something that you really enjoyed, and you did it for you because you do deserve it. And not to get like too metaphysical or anything, I really do think there is something to putting that energy out into the world and the energy coming back. And if you are hanging on tight to those treasures so they don't slip through your hands, you're not going to be open to receiving more treasures. And I know that sounds like a little bit of an oversimplification, and it is, but just kind of think about that and ponder it a little bit. You know, when you are wearing your items proudly and taking the care to make your garment and to wear it proudly, that is all such positive energy you're putting out there. And the more positive energy you put out into the world, the more you're going to be open to getting it back. If you let me, I would love to show you the project that I made with my good yarn. I only have this much of my yarn left. It was definitely a game of yarn chicken. So let me show you some footage I took before I dug into that third skein I had, where I can tell you a little bit about the yarn. You're looking at Drops Fable Print Superwash Treated Sock Wool, part of Drops design. It is color 912. And as you can see, it is pretty small. It is sock yarn, and it is 75% wool, 25% polyamide, and 224 yards in this skein. I purchased this Drops yarn as a little bit of a treat for myself when my channel got monetized. I will go ahead and I will have linked at the end of this video that Drops yarn unboxing if you would like to see that. If you have not guessed, it is this scarf. I will say the number one problem I had when trying to come up with a pattern in a project for this collab with Mary is that I've made a bad mistake. And that mistake is not buying enough of the good yarn. I am about being frugal. I am about saving money. And there have been a few times where that has totally bit me in the butt because I just haven't bought enough. And this Drops yarn haul, when you watch it, you'll see I bought a lot, but I didn't buy enough of really anything to make any projects. So I'm a little frustrated with myself about that. I have made one scarf, and I did really, really like that. It was out of the cotton yarn, and I had just enough. Again, it was like yarn chicken all over again. So that is a lesson I have definitely learned with this, and would definitely need to be more mindful of in the future, that if I am investing in some good yarn, that I do make sure that I buy enough of it. And I will admit, in this Drops yarn haul, I was trying to sample various types of yarn. So I think because I got quite a few different types, that's why I didn't, buy a lot of each kind. So looking back in retrospect, I would have definitely done that differently. I only had about 700 yards of this Fable yarn. And so I knew that I needed to keep this project fairly simple. And I know for Mary's part of this collab, she is stretching herself and she is doing something a little more complex. And I 100% adore that she is doing it that way. And I really kind of wish that I would have been able to do it that way. But I know a big issue sometimes people have with using the good yarn is that they want to have the right pattern for it. And I totally get that. But what I'm going to offer you is a little bit of an easier way out. And that would be if you are holding back, not using that good yarn for fear of messing up and not doing it right. And especially if the yarn is, something with like a mohair or just like a wool where it kind of pulls, and I don't want to say is sticky, but where it like sticks to itself and is hard to frog. I would suggest an easy way out and doing a pattern that does not stretch your skill level. And that's what I did with this. And I absolutely love it. Just because it was simple, it doesn't mean that you can't love it. And I actually do like how, since this yarn was kind of busy, I like the simplicity of this scarf in that you can see a little bit more of the colors and everything. So I got my pattern. It was a free pattern off of Lovecrafts, and I will have it linked, and it's called the Signs of Summer Shawl. The main difference between mine and the pattern here is that this calls for one skein fiber spate scrumptious yarn, sport weight, and her skein was 100 grams. It was 399 yards. So since it was a thicker yarn than I was using, I did definitely use more of it. I was using a sock yarn, but I did do the same hook size that this pattern calls for. It was a 5mm H hook. And I really like, when making scarves and shawls, I like using a much bigger hook than the yarn calls for, because I want it to be very drapey. I want it to be very loose and floppy. I do not want a stiff scarf. The pattern designer is from Cindy Culbertson. I definitely give it 2 thumbs up or 5 stars or whatever rating system you want to use. This was great. It was labeled, I believe, like a beginner level. It definitely was. It was literally just double crochets and chains. So anyone could do this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And this yarn is quite warm. It's a little scratchy. It's not soft. It's definitely not superwash merino. It is definitely just a superwash wool. It's definitely not one you like put up to your face and cuddle. It definitely has a little bit of a wool feeling, but it's not overly abrasive. I think that the colors are beautiful. I think it drapes really wonderful. And this is, I'm 5'4", so my wingspan is about 5'4" right there. So you can see I am going arm to arm. I actually don't know how much you can see what's in frame or not. So let me go ahead and hold this up so you can see all of it here. I like how, since this was a striped yarn, and some of the stripes were definitely like a marled, where you can see it's got, some of that like dark taupe and white put together. But to me, it still had like a very geometric type feel. So I think this was a really, really great pairing, because the scarf in and of itself has a very geometric feel. You can see the triangle with those solid double crochet stitches. And then of course you've got the squares in there as well. So I do really love that. Let me put this back on here. Have you seen the videos I've done where I've just like whipped a hat on or off, or a scarf, and then not remotely paid attention that like my hair was sticking out all over? It's happened multiple times. I feel so good about finishing this project, and I'm so thankful that I did get to work with Mary with this, and I'm very excited to see the direction that she has taken this, because I know based on what she said in another video, like I said, she is kind of stretching herself, so I know she is going in a different direction than I went with this. There's 3 things that I want you to get from this video. And it is, number 1, you most definitely deserve to use your good yarn on you. You don't need to hang on to it for a rainy day. There is literally no reason you can't be happy wearing it and using it every day. Number 2, make sure you get enough of the good yarn. If you're like me and now you have some yarn, but it's not really enough to do a project with, what I am going to do to fix this is look for some substitutions that I can pair this yarn with. So I'm going to check my stash first and see what is comparable as far as size, weight, and material composition, to see what can go. And then if I don't have things, what I'll end up doing is just checking at some different yarn stores and then waiting for those yarns to go on sale and pick them up. So that I can put them together. And it may be that the good yarn I've already ordered, it might be more of an accent yarn in that piece, and then the other yarn that I get from Joann or Hobby Lobby or whatever, that might be more of like the bulk of the piece. So that's okay to do too, if you aren't able to get more of that good yarn. If you're able to get more, definitely go ahead and get more. And then the third thing is, if you're worried about screwing it up and messing up the yarn and wasting it, go easy on yourself and pick a project that's below your skill level. Because if you love that yarn, you're still going to love it, even though the pattern was simple. And other people out there that aren't crocheters, they don't know the difference between something that took you 40 hours and something that took you 4 hours. If another crocheter does judge you about doing an easy pattern, that says more about them than it does about you. Don't even worry about it. There's a couple things I would love to know from you. Is there something holding you back from using your good yarn that we haven't covered? Have you had a project that you waited and waited and waited to do and you finally broke it out? I would love to know what you made with your good yarn. I am going to go ahead and post those couple of videos. They're real quick and short down in the description box about using your good things, because I think from time to time we can all use a reminder that we are worth it. And I will definitely go ahead and post up here that drops yarn haul I did, so that if you want to know more about the yarns I got and my reaction when I got them, you can check that out up here. I appreciate you spending time with me and talking about all this stuff and giving me the opportunity to talk about yarn with you. It means so much to me. Thank you so much. Bye.